I'm gonna share a testimony with you guys today. It's one of many testimonies I have. God has delivered me in so many situations and so many circumstances. But this one in particular goes back to when I was 16, around the time I was 16. I'm 32 now, but from the time I was 16 or 17, around there, I've suffered with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, suicide attempts. Um, I've struggled deeply with those things for at least half of my life. But in the beginning, about January or February of 2021, um, I went to the hospital for a psych evaluation. And as with many of the times you end up in the hospital for those things, you don't really feel like you need to be there. Um, you either feel like you don't need to be there, or you feel like there's nowhere else you need to be in those moments. But I went in there, and as they typically do at the hospital, they did blood work and all that stuff first, and I waited um, for an hour or two until they came back, and they brought the results of my blood work, um, and they were saying that I appear to have something wrong with my blood, and one of the doctors had even said leukemia. And so, you know, that wasn't great. That wasn't a great addition on top of what I was already there for. Um, but I went and I got many second opinions. I got a second, third, fourth. I believe I ended up seeing 5 or 6 doctors. Um, and in the end, it turned out the consensus was chronic lymphatic leukemia. And I'll be honest, and they said that they had found it way too late. Um, that was the consensus also. It was found way too late. I didn't have many months left, not much time left at all. And as kind of sickening as it's going to sound, I had never been more relieved in my life. Um, Up to this point, I had spent more than half of my life wanting to die, being depressed, being suicidal, not taking care of myself, um, just all around down, completely down on myself. And so this was my ticket out. It was very relieving. I was glad. The only thing I was sad for at all was that I wouldn't be here for my family anymore, um, which is ultimately what led me to, in obedience, to follow what God was instructing me to do. Um, for about a year from that time that I was diagnosed until I was healed, I was, very regular checkups, blood work, monitoring. I was on some medications, but never chemo or anything like that. Um, I lost 70 pounds, which I still can't gain back. Um, but in the middle of that about a year, in the middle of that, I had passed out at home. I just dropped when I was walking, and back to the hospital, and they did a PET scan, and they said it lit up like nearly every lymph node in my abdomen was inflamed, swollen, real bad off. And that was then that the doctor told me, it was privately, it was just the two of us at this point. I did not have much time. He said months would be generous. And again, at that point, I was still relieved. It was still something I wasn't going to have to deal with for very long, because I'm going to die, right? I mean, that's the way I looked at it. But yet I still got more months, and I continued losing weight, continued to get worse and worse. My numbers on my blood work my white cells were going higher and higher and higher, indicating your body's fighting off infection, and it just kept getting worse. And I had realized, they said I had months, maybe months, and then maybe months went from months as being generous. And then yet a few months after that, I was sitting in church with my dad, and I've been a believer my whole life. That that doesn't might not sound like it, take it how you will. This isn't going to be for everybody, and that's okay, because it's my testimony. That being said, I was a believer. I've been a believer my whole life, but just as Paul said, we want to be in the next life. We want to die. Dying gives us our reward, but that it's better for us to stay here. That had been weighing in my mind a lot, and I was starting to feel more ashamed that I was happy that this was happening to me. And my dad had been recently divorced, and I had been feeling bad about that. I'd been feeling bad that he was alone, and then I was feeling bad that now he's alone and his only son is gonna die soon. So I struggled with that for a few days, pretty heavily. And then we went to church one Sunday, and we were sitting there during worship, and I heard God say to me, if you genuinely do want to die, if you want this to be it, we can do that. That'll be soon. And he said, but look over at your dad. Who's he gonna have when you're gone? He's gonna miss you. He's gonna need you for many more years. He's gonna want you for many more years. He said, if you want to die, no problem. We can do that, and it'll be soon. He said, but if you want to be healed, I can do that right now. And it'll happen right now. And so, in that obedience, I got up and I went to the pastor and a couple of the elders, as it says in James 5, about the laying on of hands. And they had known my situation for a while, and they prayed for me. They laid hands on me and prayed for me. And the very next day was a Monday, and I had an appointment at the oncologist, and they came in, they did the routine blood work, which you do when you first go in there. And when they came back with the results, they said they couldn't believe it, but that everything had returned to normal, that it didn't appear to be a speck of sickness or illness at all anymore. And from there'll be plenty of scoffers or mockers or just doubters who just will say, well, the body is pretty miraculous. It does a lot of great things. You must have this or you must have that. But from the first doctors telling me, you don't have long, to the next being, to months later being, well, months would be putting it generously, to the day I'm sitting in church and I hear the voice of God say, I can heal you right now. And then the very next day, finding out I had been healed. There's no doubt in my mind that's the work of God. There's no doubt in my mind God speaks to us, just as we're speaking right now. There's no doubt in my mind that God healed me. There's no doubt in my mind that the Word of God is true. And there will be people, Christians even, that will tell you, the laying on of hands doesn't heal people, that's not real, that's not something that happens. And I'm here to tell you that it absolutely does happen. The Word says it, and it is true. The Word is true. It is truth, and it is life. I am still here today, 2 years after the fact, to let you know it absolutely is true. God can heal you. There is reward in the obedience to His Word. He's did it for me. I didn't deserve it, and nor did I want it, but He did it for me. He offered that to me. And I just, give this testimony today to tell you it can happen for you too. Listen for the voice of God. Be obedient to the voice. Stay in His Word. Stay praying. Keep a relationship with Him. It's between you and Him. It's a personal relationship because it's you He's after. That's it. Have faith. Read the Word. Believe that it's true. And it is true. And it will show itself to be true.